presentation on budgetary slack. Budgetary slack is what occurs when managers or those who are involved in the creating of budgets intentionally state that they're going to receive less revenue or have more expenses than what they actually think. And this creates what's known as that slack in the budget that allows them to be able to more easily reach their goals or to have less difficulty doing what they say they're going to do, so that it reduces like the pressure that they're receiving from upper management, and it can also make it so that they receive their financial compensation such as bonuses more easily. Up to 80% of managers who have been interviewed in different studies have admitted to participating in budgetary slack. It's something that occurs all the time in many different businesses, and that's because of financial compensation. The fact that sometimes they feel like they might lose their job if they're not going to reach the goals that were set by the budgets. And the problem with this is that it creates an environment where our businesses aren't running as effectively and efficiently as they can, because these things are creating so many different problems, from not working as hard as they can, or even working a little bit harder in one quarter and then less harder in another, to kind of create an environment where not as much is expected of each one of the managers and employees. There has been proven to be a tie between the attitude towards budgetary slack and how much is actually used. So in corporations where everyone views budgetary slack as a normal part of business, there seems to be much more budgetary slack as those corporations where employees don't view it as something that should be done. Another type of budgetary slack comes from something known as task uncertainty. This is what happens when management and presidents, CEOs are constantly changing procedures in the way that they think that they should do business. What this does is it makes it so that even highly trained employees aren't exactly sure what they're supposed to be doing each year. And so, for example, with a deadline, maybe they've done this thing many times before, but the procedures are completely different from year to year. So they're going to give themselves a little bit of a cushion on how long it's going to take them to do it. Not because they really want to take that long, but just to make sure that they're not going to get in trouble for not meeting deadlines, because they're not sure how many policies are going to change during the year. So task uncertainty can happen from the top level of management, creating many different procedures year to year. And once this spreads to all the different branches of that corporation, it can create a very inefficient system, because people aren't doing things as quickly or as effectively as they can, because they're afraid that next year the procedures are going to be very different and they're not going to be able to continue that pace. One of the best methods to reduce budgetary slack is to continuously train your employees to be as ethical as possible. This is kind of a difficult thing to teach, and so for the most part, companies need to make sure that they are hiring ethical employees, because an ethical employee or manager is going to be much less likely to create budgetary slack. That doesn't mean that ethics is the end all for budgetary slack, because it's been proven that people will act differently when certain perverse incentives arrive. So promoting ethics is a good method, but businesses should still be aware of the problems of budgetary slack. In conclusion, budgetary slack is a very old problem. It's been around for nearly as long as budgets have been, because of the perverse incentives that budgets just naturally create. Ethics and a combined attitude towards budgetary slack can be effective methods to help curb this, but in reality, businesses need to know that budgetary slack is a problem that almost every business faces, and so they need to be able to look and decide what would work best for them on an individual basis, how they can create an environment where employees and managers will have less of an attitude towards creating slack and more of an attitude towards helping the company thrive and be as successful as it can be.